This is AUGforums.com Real Talk. First, thank you to our sponsors, APS Payments, DataSelf, and Belixo. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Every click helps to support this podcast. My name is Tim Rodman, and I'm coming to you live on Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. This is episode number 45, Consulting with Acumatica from Malta with Angelo Pickard. And Angelo, thanks for joining us today. I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, Tim, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. Was looking very forward to it. Yes, my name is Angelo Pickard. I'm from Malta. And many a time when I introduce myself, they tell me, okay, but where is Malta? And I thought of starting off by introducing our little small island, because yes, it's true. Malta is a very small island. If you try to locate it on the map, most probably you will miss it, because it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, we're a very small island. If you look carefully in the middle of the Mediterranean, approximately 80 kilometers south of Italy, then you will see a very small island in the form of a fish, and that is Malta. It's so small that we have only around 300, a little bit more than 300 kilometers of ground. So yes, it's quite small. And however, the population, we're reaching a population of around 500,000. So it's quite a populous island. A nice place, a very nice place to live in, because since we are surrounded by sea, weather is not very difficult on us. In fact, we have very nice weather, although in summer it's a bit warm, but in winter it's not very cold. So I think people enjoy living on this island. So that is Malta. And as I told you, Malta has a sister island, a very small sister island called Gozo. And we thrive on history, cuisine, places of attraction, and also climate and sea. So many visitors. So we live on tourism as well, besides other industries. And many tourists enjoy visiting Malta because of climate, sea, and history mainly. Okay, that was my introduction, Tim. To the
I was looking at the
thing Malta because of climate, sea, and history mainly. Okay, that was my introduction, Tim. To the
I was looking at the size, and I wonder if I think this is correct. A lot of people in the U.S. are familiar with Hawaii, and it looked to me like Hawaii is even actually bigger than Malta.
Yes,
you know if that's right?
Much bigger. Hawaii is much bigger than Malta, yes. It's true.
Malta really is a pretty small island. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty small, true. It's pretty small. However, we're very near the rest. We're part of EU. We're very near other countries, like, as I told you, only 80 kilometers away from Italy. So we have quite a lot of connections, especially, and we live with connections, with especially EU connections.
And so did you grow up there in Malta or somewhere else in the EU, or, where did you grow up?
Malta, because I always lived on these islands. School, I also went to school in Malta. Mainly when it comes to other countries, it was mainly initially visiting as holidays, but also related to work. Later on, when I introduced our company as well, we had a lot of, you have a lot of working options, especially that we form part of EU. Many people have a lot of experience working and even studying abroad. When I was, let's say, when I was still studying, I studied in Malta because at the time, which is around 35 years ago, obviously opportunities were much less. Even for traveling, it was still quite, let's say, not as easy to travel as is today. So yeah, I'm 50 years young or old, whatever. I have studied in Malta, finished my universities 30 years ago. My university studies, studied computer studies and physics, because my main areas were always the sciences. However, as soon as I finished my studies, I kicked off working more on the computer studies because I enjoyed more the computer studies, and I focused mainly on computers, computer studies at that point in time. There were some in Malta. There were some, let's say, some vacancies related to programming, and that is where I started my work experience with the company. Programming at that point in time, it was still mainframes and these multi-user systems. We were still programming using C and C++ at that point in time. So that was my first. We were still programming using C and C++ at that point in time. So that was my first experience, which approximately took me 2 years. After 2 years, I wanted to have a different experience, and I started teaching. And once again, teaching mainly computer studies and physics. I continued my studies at that point in time because I wanted to obtain some extra, let's say, some postgraduate certifications, especially when it comes to education. And that took me another 2 years studying and also teaching. An opportunity came, and I think this new opportunity then changed a little bit my insight towards the private industry, because I was employed then with Coca-Cola Malta. In Malta, we have a local bottler for Coca-Cola, which is quite a largish company. It not only manufactures and bottles Coke, but also do the whole distribution within these islands. So there I spent approximately 12 years managing the IT department. Initially, I joined as an assistant manager there with the IT department, a very small team, but we did quite a lot of work, especially when it comes to programming and supporting business applications. That opportunity gave me a lot of insight on the business, and that is where I fell in love with the business processes, especially since this was both a bottling and a distributor, the main local distributor. It gave me insight towards a lot of business processes, mainly when it comes to financials, procurement, sales, dispatching, delivery. It gave me a lot of opportunity to learn. And besides learning as well, because Coca-Cola forms part of the global Coca-Cola, I had the opportunity to learn as well about business applications, both built for Coca-Cola, but also other business applications which we require to support. And I think that was my, let's say, my turning point, because I was looking at all these systems, and in the very early of 2000s, in the earlier years of the 2000s, so like 2000, 2001, something like that, together with my team, we started investigating to see, because at that point in time, there were a lot of bespoke applications. We were using a lot of bespoke applications and applications which didn't talk to each other. So like, for example, the accounting package was a standalone, the distribution was an application, Coca-Cola, and many other let's say, silos of applications. At that point in time, we started investigating investigating options which we had to try and find solutions which are more integrated. And in 2002, I think that was my first experience with an ERP application. At that point in time, it was Dynamics. It wasn't even Dynamics called. It was still, in Europe, Navision was very popular. It wasn't even Dynamics. It was Navision, first Navision Finance and then Navision Attain. And that was my first experience, because we decided to implement that ERP application. There was a local provider who supplied us with the application, but we took it on board internally. We had a small team of 3 developers, and we decided to implement it for Coca-Cola. I fell in love with ERPs. That was my first who supplied us with the application, but we took it on board internally. We had a small team of 3 developers, and we decided to implement it for Coca-Cola. I fell in love with ERPs. That was my first.
On that. Can I ask you on that?
Yes, of course.
It was Dynamics Navision. I would assume like the big Coca-Cola Global would be on something like SAP. Was this just an implementation for the local Coca-Cola, or was it company-wide?
Yeah, very good question, Tim. Way back in the early 2000s, Coca-Cola had its own, let's say, business application, which was called BASIS at that point in time. It's Bottler Association System, whatever. It was an acronym for all this. However, this BASIS, it was very old, and Coca-Cola were thinking globally, were thinking of replacing that with another product, started implementing SAP. At the time, it was SAP R3. But that was too big for us as a company, as a local bottler. So we decided to venture on our own and try to find an ERP application which made more sense to us due to the fact that we were a very small bottling plant. So that is how we decided. Obviously, we engaged with some support from a local company, which could give us some advice as well with regards to business applications. And we did a selection process. And from the set of different applications, there were not a lot. In Malta, we tried to find at least a provider who supported us locally, if possible, because of the costs and so on and so forth. So there were not a lot. There was like the SAP, because the SAPs, we tried to find at least a provider who supported us locally, if possible, because of the costs and so on and so forth. So there were not a lot. There was like the SAP, because the SAPs, it wasn't even supported in Malta. It was supported in Greece at that point in time. But there were some Microsoft. There was the Navision and Great Plains, Microsoft, and then there were some local as well, Inforsun as well. It was one of the products, and we decided to try the Navision at that point in time. I think we did a good job, because in 2 years we implemented it, and we implemented not everything, but we implemented the first part, which was more on the selling part. There was also some ISVs which could integrate because of the bottling of the distribution part. So I think it was a venture between some of our customizations, Navision at that point in time, although later on we realized that it had a lot of problems when you do an upgrade, but you know, you always learn from that. But that is how I ventured into ERPs, and I enjoyed it so much that after 3 years, in 2006, I said, okay, this was the first implementation, but I would like to make more implementations. And that is when I decided to leave Coca-Cola and start working with another supplier, which was the local vendor for Navision at that point in time, for the Dynamics Nav. And that took me to my second experience. Any questions, Tim, on this particular on this particular topic?
Great. No, I like the background. I like the pivot into ERP. I like the point too about Coca-Cola, a company like that there really are multiple systems running in a place like that. And it's totally normal, right? You roll up the financials to the global, and everyone locally runs their own. What a great place, 12 years to get experience there. This is great. Keep going. So then you got 2006, and
exactly.
Now you're about to go into this full-time implementation mode, which I think is it's one thing to do one implementation. It's another one to lived the life of implementing, and let's hear how that went.
Exactly. In fact, in 2006, then I joined a local company called IBS. Ironically, I know that there is a VAR, an ISV for Acumatica, which is also IBS. It's not the same IBS. It was a local company, well, I was coming with a lot of experience when it comes to the different business processes. One line of business, which was mainly food and beverages. It was more the beverages. So the next 2 years introduced me to a lot of other types of businesses, mainly telecommunication was one of them, other lines of businesses when it comes to the distribution, and also other sectors as well. But these 2 years gave me cars, for example, buying and rentals of cars as well. So it gave me quite an insight into other lines of businesses. However, obviously, using the same, let's say, the same main business processes, like, for example, the accounting part, which we call the financials, the procurement part, starting from request till you purchase, receipting, and so on and so forth, distribution, my manufacturing, starting from request till you purchase, receipting, and so on and so forth, distribution, my manufacturing background, which was coming from Coca-Cola. So taking all those together, I think the experience that I gained, thankfully, all these opportunities for me were in a hindsight, I gained a lot of experience from, especially when it comes to business processes, from all these implementations. We did quite a lot of implementations. Navision at the time was a pillar in Malta, because let's not forget that Malta, we have a lot of industries which are quite small, small to medium. And when I say medium, it doesn't compare to medium-sized businesses in USA, for example. The medium compares only to the small type of businesses in the USA, most probably. So did quite a lot of businesses. And from my side, I was gaining a lot of experience. At that point in time, we also had some experience. We work a lot with, or used to, because nowadays it's not anymore, but we used to work a lot in Libya as well. And Libya required a lot of ERP applications as well. And we used to implement as well Navision, not only in Malta, but also in the African region, mainly in Libya. So in Tripoli mainly, there were a lot of businesses, both Maltese businesses as well as EU businesses, and we had some opportunities there as well. So it was quite let's say, a good experience to work not only on the local industries, but also some much bigger industries than the local industry. In 2008, I had the opportunity to join CompuTime. Looking for some people to kick off as well Navision at that point in time. They wanted to start supporting Navision, and I joined CompuTime to help them, let's say, to starting to support Navision at CompuTime. CompuTime Limited is the company that I'm still working since 2008. So for the past 12 years, I've been working with CompuTime. CompuTime, once again, is a local provider of ICT services. It's been, I immediately took the opportunity because it's one of the biggest companies in Malta when it comes to ICT. We employ around 100 people, and it has two arms. It has an arm in the CompuTime technologies and an arm in the CompuTime software. And I joined obviously in the software arm technologies and an arm in the CompuTime software. And I joined obviously in the software arm of CompuTime. As I told you, it's been around for 40 years, so it's quite a well-known company in the local market. Obviously, for me, it was a good opportunity to start working with CompuTime. Initially, we started with as I told you, with Dynamics Nav. At that point in time, it was part of the Microsoft business. It was bought, Navision was bought by Microsoft. However, after a few years, we realized that it was becoming incredibly, or not just increasingly, but incredibly difficult to sell, and not just to sell the product, but also to make sense of implementing such a product. And the reason being was mainly because there were 4 different service providers and told me, listen, I want to start to introduce a new ERP application, but it has to be different. This ERP application, it cannot be one of the main, let's say, main known ERP applications in the local market, which is supported already by other providers, because it doesn't make sense when it comes to the amount of money that you need to invest in such, and resources, and payroll, and so on and so forth. At least the application that we have to support needs to make sense. So way back, this was now 2013, 2014. And in 2014, I was assigned the task, a 6-month task, to start searching and seeing what we can implement when it comes to ERP with a difference. It had to be an ERP with a difference. So seeing what we can implement when it comes to ERP with a difference. It had to be an ERP with a difference. So I did a lot of research, internet research, journals, magazines, looking at some, some well-famed journals, and so on and so forth. And at that point in time, I was made aware, or I became aware, that there's a different breed of ERPs, which are more related to the, not just an ERP installed on a server, but ERPs which are cloud-based ERPs, or built readily for the cloud. And at that point in time, I started, and this was quite interesting, and together with a small team, we're only 2-3 people, we started looking at which products offer such functionality. And we came, initially we started with around 20 names, and we started shortlisting those names. And first of all, most of those names were coming from the US market. And the first thing that we were asking, listen, do you support VAT? Do you support requirements which are legal requirements and fiscal requirements which are more related to Europe rather than US? So we started, we created a questionnaire, and we started asking these companies. We sent this questionnaire to these companies, and we started analyzing their replies, and we started shortlisting quite a number of names, which most probably you know about. Like, for example, at that point in time, there was the Infor Cloud, Finance Force, Intech, NetSuite, Remco Unit 4, Aquila, and one of the names was Acumatica. At that point in time, 2014, Acumatica was, I think, it was a very young product. It was still version 3 or 4, I think, something like that, which was quite in the early days of Acumatica. But to be honest, when we started shortlisting, Acumatica was one of the, let's say, one of the products which was already supporting VAT and some requirements which we required in Europe. And we were quite impressed with that, to be honest. We continued shortlisting, and finally, we ended up with 2 products, which was NetSuite and Acumatica. We had a number of demos with both the Acumatica team and the NetSuite team. And although NetSuite obviously was a much larger product at that point in time, it had a lot of more functionality than Acumatica. There were some quite interesting features in Acumatica which, let's say, hit the ground running, because we were really impressed. One of them was that Acumatica, and besides that, it was very, very, let's say, easy to speak with the top people. So top people could understand our challenges, the challenges that we had. But I'll speak about these challenges, I think, in my later on. But Acumatica and NetSuite were the, let's say, were the front runners to select from. Tim, I'm just
sure.
blabbering around. I don't
No,
know.
this is great. This is great.
Mhm.
I'm curious to back up when I think you said the owner came to you and asked you to investigate a new solution. If I understood you correctly, you didn't mention cloud first. You mentioned, what was it exactly? He was looking for something that was a lesser known product specifically?
Yeah, what he wanted, he was already, he's quite, one of our owners is quite IT savvy as well. And he was already looking at,
Was a lesser known product specifically?
yeah, what he wanted, he was already, he's quite, one of our owners is quite IT savvy as well. And he was already looking at, he wanted something which was an ERP solution, which had a competitive advantage when it comes to trying to compete with the well-branded and well-established, let's say, ERP applications which were already on our island, which were already supported on our island. So we have to come up with something which was a competitive advantage, which other solutions either didn't have or didn't support as good as this product that we had to select. And at that point in time,
I could see how from a customer side, a lot of customers just want to go with a well-known solution. But from a consulting side, that's an interesting point that
really known, or it was still in the early days of cloud-based solutions. And even though there was already the Microsofts which were talking about it, and also the SAPs which were talking about it, in reality, the products that Microsoft and SAP and other brands offered were still not really built for the cloud. So that was one area which we were really investigating, because we could go to our local market and start, preaching around the cloud-based solution and the advantages that a cloud-based solution provides over other solutions. So we needed that competitive advantage, even though, as you rightly said, highlighted, even if the product was not well known to the local market. That was our focus, and that was our experiment. Let's put it that way.
Before we
highlighted, even if the product was not well known to the local market. That was our focus, and that was our experiment. Let's put it that way.
Before we turn the corner, before we turn the corner and learn how that turned out for you, I think it turned out well. But before we turn the corner and leave Navision, I'm curious two things. First, one, coming from a programming and development background, what was it like transitioning into doing implementations where you're really trying to learn the core and implement the core, not do everything custom? What was that like for you as a developer? I mean, was that a tough transition? Because I find a lot of developers just want to build it. They don't want to understand what's already there. And I'm sure that skill set is very applicable today. What was that transition out of, I guess, out of Coca-Cola into IBS when you're implementing the Dynamics Navision?
Very good question, Tim. I think I had a little bit of an advantage there because when I was at Coca-Cola, much as possible, if a solution provides at least, let's say, most of the requirements, or if you can change a little bit your process and try to meet, let's say, 70% of what the solution already provides, then as much as possible, try to embrace the out-of-box solution. Does this work always? Definitely not. But many a time, most of these applications are built on, let's say, on the standard flows, on the standard process flows. So many a time, I was always preaching, and because I always believed that if you can use the out of the box, use out of the box. But obviously, in each and every industry, there are those, let's say, processes which are specific, not only to that industry, but most probably even to that company. Let's say processes which are specific, not only to that industry, but most probably even to that company. And many often you need then to customize or to enhance to enhance the product to meet these requirements. However, coming from not just the development side, but also from the management side of the department, because I used to head as well the IT. I used to always ask the question, listen, before we just customize, can we look at the business process and see if this business process makes sense because it is really fruitful for the business? Or are we having this business process because there was another process which didn't work and we just put in another process just to make sure that this process is working, and we ended up in a lot of cycle with many things which does not make sense. So I think I think I always, let's put it that way, I always found that when you take a step back, try to understand the business first of all, try to understand the requirements, then sit down and try to map those requirements to the application that you have in hand, and where really there is a need of customization of an enhancement, then it is only at that point in time that you enhance. I think at least what I found out through my experience is that this mostly works well with both the client and also who is supplying the product, especially keeping in mind that that product needs to be upgraded every so often. At that point in time when it was still Navision, it was not so easy to upgrade and to introduce new functionality. So I think those elements really still Navision. It was not so easy to upgrade and to introduce new functionality. So I think those elements really, it always made me and the team which I worked with always very careful that before you start customizing, make sure that what you are doing is really beneficial to both.
I think that's a great skill set and a rare skill set. And it sounds like that was something you had already built before you transitioned into doing implementation full time. So it sounds like it wasn't a big struggle. Second question I was curious about before we leave Navision is, Microsoft finally got into the cloud game with their ERP. And the last I checked, it's now called Dynamics Business Central.
Yes,
and
exactly.
It's the old Vision product. And I'm curious if you had any regrets when that happened, which was years later. Did you have?
I think since I started working and starting appreciating the product and what the Acumatica team are doing, I never look back, to be honest. And to be honest, I speak with some of my older colleagues which are still working on, let's say, Microsoft products. That besides Navision, the AX also took quite a lot of the market, or at least quite the bigger company chunk of some markets, not only in Malta, but also in other parts. And I know some of my previous colleagues which work with those products. In fact, one of those, a person which used to work with AX now is working with us in Acumatica as well. And to be honest, when we discuss this, we both say we're looking forward to what Acumatica is going to provide in the future, because Acumatica was, and this is something in the future, because Acumatica was, and this is something which I really believe, Acumatica as a team is a very dynamic team which provides quite not just functionality but also very interesting features when it comes to the product as well. But we'll talk about this later on. So no, never. I never regretted. Obviously, I would like that I still know quite a lot about Navision, because now after so many years, I'm starting to forget, some skills which I obtained in Navision. So if you tell me, would you like that you know all about it still, or that you knew 12 years, not 12 years ago, around 8 years ago, I would tell you yes, but obviously you have to stop somewhere and start somewhere else. But no, I never had regrets that I shifted, definitely not.
So now your company has two cloud products with Dynamics Business Central, I would assume, and Acumatica.
No,
yeah,
no. To be honest,
just the old Navision, like the original?
The Navision, no, we stopped it completely. In fact, we decided that
Oh.
for our company, Navision didn't make sense any longer, because we ended up, when we tried to sell Navision, we ended up in an absurd case where we were competing about the price, not about just functionality. Because if you're trying to compete in such a small country with other resellers, the same product, then you end up, you end up meeting at the same prospect and trying to sell the same functionality, and then you end up in an absurd game of I'm going to give you discounts and I'm going to make it cheaper. I'm going to reduce the amount of time to implement, which for us didn't make any sense any longer, because we always, as CompuTime, I think one of the ethos of CompuTime was that we wanted to use the, let's say, on the pillars of we try to understand your business and we try to provide you a solution which fits your business and which at the end of the day, your return on investment will make sense. So that is when we decided to crossroads to stop supporting one solution and kick off with another different solution completely.
Okay, so you're basically all Acumatica now, and
yes.
It sounds like initially for you, the cloud part was important. So not just having a lesser known product with a competitive advantage. Cloud was important early on. I'm sure that continued to be important. But what about in addition to cloud? Was there anything that has surprised you with what people have liked about Acumatica?
I'll come to Acumatica. Yes, in fact, as I told you, as a software arm, we do not only implement other areas as well. One of them is asset management. We also focus a little bit on the pure financials as well, which we do with another product as well. And lately, we've been focusing a lot on what we call EAM. It's transaction management related to the gaming industry, and also to other industries where regulation is required as well. So we have other arms, but one of our biggest arms is the ERP, obviously, is the ERP application. So going back, Tim, to Acumatica and how we chose Acumatica. As I told you, we have shortlisted NetSuite and Acumatica. And when we tried to put them in balance, first of all, NetSuite, how we chose Acumatica. As I told you, we have shortlisted NetSuite and Acumatica. And when we tried to put them in balance, first of all, NetSuite, we saw that it will not be a very good fit to the local market for two main reasons. One of them was the price to pay, or at least the license, and also the license price for NetSuite, because for such small markets, small businesses, the price was a bit hefty at that point in time. But besides also the additional costs and the additional, let's say, the product, because it had a lot of functionality, it was a little bit heavy to implement, and the time to implement and to support such a product, it was going to be very expensive, not only for us as a reseller, but also for the end customers. We knew that the functionality was not all there yet. However, we also had a very good feel that the management team that was behind it really wanted to do something with this product. And also from a cost perspective, it was not, at that point in time, it was not very expensive for the customers. And for some reason, I immediately, which up till today, I cannot explain why, I like this product immediately. It was already quite easy, let's say, quite easy to use. And in fact, and also, I think one of the tricks that worked with me was that I noticed immediately that Acumatica tried to, to publish all information. So it was very, and also, I think one of the tricks that worked with me was that I noticed immediately that Acumatica tried to, how do you say, to publish all information. So it was very easy to find, for example, videos on Acumatica already, also some help. Unfortunately, one of the, let's say, one of the minuses was that there was no user group forums, like, for example, there was with Navision at that point in time. Microsoft had quite some very powerful user groups with a lot of knowledge gaining from those. Acumatica was still quite new. But for us, it made a lot of sense. Also, when we wanted to engage with the management to see if they can provide us with pricing, with pricing which made sense for a country like Malta, it was very easy. They provided us a lot of support as well. So it became very, how do you say, very easy to select Acumatica at that point in time, just which I will speak about in a bit of time. But that is when early 2015, the product was only, I think it wasn't even 5 years old, the product at that point in time. That is when we decided to contract with Acumatica and, well, try it out and see what happens.
Try it out. I like that. see what happens. I think it's interesting hearing you talk about, but what I would term the openness of Acumatica with their information. That was one of the things that attracted me as well. When I was sniffing around NetSuite, I was trying to pick up a new product as well myself, and the more I sniffed around NetSuite, the more it felt like a black box. I couldn't get inside and figure out what it was really like. But with Acumatica, it's much more open. It almost felt like an open source culture. And that was one of the things that I really liked about it as well. It was like, we've got nothing to hide. We'll tell you the good and the bad. And that's just the philosophy that they run on.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I was impressed, to be honest. I was impressed when I started, playing around with the system. First of all, it was very easy, even just to download the system. It's open. It gives you immediately full access to the system, so you can play around. Even initially, we thought that they were only publishing part of the customization of the actual product. If you go in a customization project, we said, no, it can't be that we're looking at all the customization here. Well, Acumatica, how come be? When you're coming from the philosophy of Microsoft that even if you want to learn something, you have to pay even for the manuals. It was astonishing for us that how open Acumatica playing around with the product, and we were saying, oh geez, this is quite easy to use. In fact, we started in approximately, I think, 2 or 3 months, we were already playing quite a lot with the product, and also looking a little bit at the programming behind it, customizations, not complex customizations, obviously, but adding a new field, playing around a little bit with the form, and doing these basic, let's say, customizations. And we're really astonished with how much open the product was. We're incredibly astonished, to be honest. And and this is thanks to you, Tim. I was searching the internet, and I was saying, okay, so we have the help which Acumatica immediately provided us. At that point in time, I think there wasn't university, no. However, there was the partner portal which had all the manuals which we could download free of help, which Acumatica immediately provided us. At that point in time, I think there wasn't university, no. However, there was the partner portal which had all the manuals which we could download free of charge. That was another blessing in the sky. So we could read through, and I said, let me see if there are any forums, if there are any user groups. And all of a sudden, I found this site, this red and white site, Tim Rodman site. I think 2015, Tim, you already were publishing, no? Your how do you say, your adventures with Acumatica? I think so, yeah.
That's right, yeah, since 2013, actually, yeah.
You started, okay. No, I saw it. I started, yeah, and I think thanks to you, you also provided some tips and tricks. Started with reporting, but then delved into help from some, I think, gurus in Acumatica. I'm not going to name the names because I would definitely miss someone, because there were a few which were readily available and helped us quite a lot. And that proved to us that we can do something with this product, definitely. Obviously, and I cannot not mention this, it was incredibly hard to find the first customer, because Acumatica, unfortunately, wasn't just unknown to Malta, but it was unknown to Europe practically. There were only very, very few VARs, I think one in Italy, and I think some two, but the Italy wasn't even an active VAR, and some two in the UK. I'm not sure if there were any others in Europe. So it was incredibly difficult for us to, when you try and find a prospect and tell them, well, do you have an ERP? Do you support? You try and find a prospect and tell them, well, do you have an ERP? Do you support an ERP? Yes, we support Acumatica. What? Acu what? So it was incredibly difficult, and we banged more on our on the CompuTime name initially. Obviously, at least companies knew about us, and also I think we took a decision to only focus on a very few lines of business initially. Very few lines of businesses, and one of them was the professional services, because the professional services were quite familiar with professional services, and professional service companies in Malta were quite familiar with our name, with our local CompuTime name. And in 2016, we did our first implementation. It was a professional service. It was a group of auditors, a company within service. It was a group of auditors, a company which had around 70 people in total, an auditing firm, auditing and advisory firm. And they knew us already, so it was an easier task because at least they knew our company. And together with them, we did our first implementation of Acumatica. And to be honest, we did this, or we implemented the financial module, so the finance and project accounting. At that point in time, there wasn't even the light distribution, which were the purchasing. So what we implemented is financials. That means GLCA, AP and AR, obviously local tax, VAT, but luckily Acumatica had already the module for tax, which supported VAT at that point in time. Currency, because for tax, which supported VAT at that point in time. Currency, because let's not forget that in EU we have a lot of currency. So although we many a time we transact with euro, but we purchase a lot of services from UK, GBP, so, and from other countries with dollars and with other currencies as well. And also, so that was the finance arm, the finance module of Acumatica, and project accounting. So those were mainly the two, let's say, the two modules of Acumatica that we started with way back in 2016, our first implementation. And together with project accounting, the time sheeting part as well, the time cards and expenses, the time and expenses module as well. So those were the three, let's call them the three modules that we implemented Acumatica for this company.
Wow, your first implementation, 3 months. That's pretty good.
Yeah. It was a challenge because they gave us the challenge and told us if you can implement this for one tenant with one company. There wasn't even the notion of company at that point in time. It was tenant and business, and so we implemented just one company.
Right?
This tenant.
Yeah. There was no company. It was just tenant and branch, right?
Exactly. So we implemented one tenant with one branch at that point in time. However, and I think there was one experience which really impressed me. And I said, yes, Acumatica, we can do it with Acumatica, because when we were implementing this Acumatica, it was version 5.3, if I'm not mistaken, 5.2 or 5.3. I forgot the exact version. It was still quite there was already a big shift with the UI, because from version 4 to version 5 in Acumatica, there was a very big shift in the UI, and it was much better from a UI perspective, version 5 than version 4 Acumatica. However, when we implemented Acumatica, first of all, obviously, we started with the analysis, then the design. We did a few changes when it comes to customization to the time card, because we had to adapt the time card to a professional service requirement, and they enter a lot of lines in a time card. It's a weekly time card, so many of these employees used to enter in 1 week 50, 60, 70 lines in a time card. So we had to add some header fields, the daily total, the weekly total, to make sure that the weekly adds to 40 hours or to 32 hours. We had to also add some header fields, the daily total, the weekly total, to make sure that the weekly adds to 40 hours or to 32 hours. We had to also introduce the idea of the reduced time. So we did some changes, some customizations on the time card, and a very few customizations on the project card as well, but and some changes as well to the invoice, because we had to do a summary invoice. But those were mainly the changes that we did, the customizations that we did on this first project. The rest was all out of the box, and with some workarounds and some uploads as well, some bulk uploads. But there were two experiences which really convinced me that Acumatica is the product. The first experience was what we don't appreciate is what I'm going to explain now. Part of when we designed, and there was the UA, before we started user acceptance testing, we had to give training. So I asked the client to only take the super users, and we train only the super users, so that then the super users will train their users. And we agreed on this, and we started doing the training. And when it came to the time card, the project manager from their side, from the client side, told me, listen, but the time card, we're going to introduce it immediately to all employees. And I told him, oh, hey, wait a minute. These are 70 employees. We can't train 70 employees all at one go. We need to do different classes. He told me, no, let me tell you what we'll do. What we'll do is we have an event. They had an event, a client event. It was a big event, with employees all at one go. We need to do different classes. He told me, no, let me tell you what we'll do. What we'll do is we have an event. They had an event, a client event. It was a big event, which they had. And during this event, we're going to spend 45 minutes introducing the product to the employees, and also introducing the time card and showing them the process, how they enter a time card, how they send it for approval, how it is submitted, how it is approved, if it is rejected, what happens, and so on and so forth. I told him, okay, I will prepare for it and we will introduce it in your event. He told me, no, I will prepare for it and I will introduce it, and you just be there to support me if I need you. And I was impressed. I was shocked and impressed.
I love that.
I was impressed, and I told him, do you think you will be able to do it? He told me, yes, it's quite easy to go through this process. And in fact, that's what he went into and explained the time card, how they are going to enter time cards, how they are going to, and he used their terminology, their way of speaking. He was discussing what happens in their case, but obviously he knew their processes, he knew so it was much easier for the employees to understand what it's all about. And to be honest, in a few days' time, they were all testing this blessed application with few interventions from our side, and they really grasped it very, very quickly. That is why we could implement it in such a short time. And this is something which we do not, many a time, we don't appreciate how user-friendly Acumatica is, to be honest.
That's a great point. I've also got to ask on the event though, was there food at this event?
Yes.
Do you recall?
yes, it was a typical.
I think there's a good manager owner right there who appreciates the value of training and invested in it, doing it personally, turning it into an event, not just training with food. That's smart right there.
Yeah, it was very smart from their side, and it was also an eye-opener for us. Eye-opener that we have a product which is quite new. We have a product which is at that point in time it was something else. It was cloud-based for the local market. To tell them, listen, you don't need to install any software on your local machine. All you need to do is access this link, and you have it on your, and you can. It's available everywhere. It was something new at that point in time, 2016, early 2016. It was, and it was something which was quite interesting and quite point when I said, I think we can do it. I think we can do it with Acumatica.
Quick time check here. Do you have another 15, 20 minutes or?
Yes. From my side, we're a bit. Yeah, stop me whenever I'm blabbing around because I talk a lot.
No, this is great. I love getting into in-depth conversations, and to me, we've got the summit coming up in July, which I personally won't be going to this year, but these are coming up in July, which I personally won't be going to this year, but these are I like having conversations that normally could only be had at Summit and recording them like we're doing, publishing them. I think it's a great way for people to, in a sense, get to know others in a more in-depth way and then find out who they want to connect with at Summit. So I like these informal conversations, and you're doing this. Let's see, it's got to be 7:30 your time in the evening now. I can hear dishes being done in the background, and this kind of informal conversation is great. Exactly the kind of stuff I'm looking for. So no, let's keep going. This is great.
Yeah. Okay, let me fast forward a little bit because I don't want to keep you for very long. But what we did then, that was the kickoff for us. Even the company started to invest from two people, because we're only two people. One, I was doing the consulting work, and I had a colleague who was doing more. Even the company started to invest from two people, because we're only two people. One, I was doing the consulting work, and I had a colleague who was doing more the development work on it. We grew from 2016 fast forward to 2020, which was last year. We are now today we are now a team of nearly 15 people, split in three different groups. We have the consulting side, we have the development side, with two MVPs as well from the development side, and we have the business side of it, the business development side, and we have also part of our consulting team, we have also the support side as well, the support and enhancement side. So we have a team. I think we have a very let's say quite a vast team for such a small island. Today we in total, I am up to date, we in past 2 years, I think, and this is something which is quite ironic, since COVID kicked off, I think that was our biggest achievements, because since 2020 alone, we had 7 new implementations. So that was quite an achievement. And we besides the line of business for professional services, we also started to tackle other areas, one of which is the distribution. And when we say the distribution, it is more the fleet distribution. So you have a fleet of trucks, and you want to distribute, goods, food and beverages. And this we had a lot of experience from past from past experience. And what we did, we created an ISV product, local audience. And what we did, we created an ISV product. Local is quite a largish ISV product. We call it Orbis DSD. And what we did, and this is something which, once again, Tim, I wanted to mention this because I think one of the challenges that we also face is how much do you customize Acumatica? Acumatica provides quite a lot of let's say tools. First of all, it's another area which Acumatica I honestly I really boast about is how easy it is to obtain information from Acumatica, how easy it is even without customizations to create some flows and some let's say some business events and with now also with the workflows that they are introducing in the latest editions as well. But also it is quite easy to customize Acumatica. So one of our was how much do we go with customizations? What makes sense and what does not make sense? And Tim, I would suggest that sometime you maybe it's a good idea to have such, such an open discussion with some people, and let's hear some ideas about how much do you customize Acumatica, and if you have a 70% fit, is that good enough? Do you do 30% customizations? Do you do more customizations? When do you say, no way, I'm not going to delve into such a project because there's too many customizations that I need to do? So I don't know. I don't know if it interests you, but for me, it's quite interesting to hear what other people have to say about this topic, to be honest.
I like that. I'm curious on that. Do you think
it interests you? But for me, it's quite interesting to hear what other people have to say about this topic, to be honest.
I like that. I'm curious on that. Do you think, are you just looking to break it down by percentages, or maybe does it make more sense you take some specific clients and talk, bring them on and you talk through the specifics of the decisions they had to make? Do we conform to the system, or do we customize the system? What makes more sense to you, higher level or get into the specific decisions they had to make?
Okay, there are two areas, Tim. I don't want to
the decision they made and whether or not they regretted it. I think that's that's the key question.
True. I don't want to delve into this today because we will end up not ending anywhere, to tell you the truth, because it's a very vast topic to discuss, I think. But what we did, consolidation of routes, having delivery routes, having sales routes, and all these things. So what we did, we enhanced the product. We created our own ISV within the product, within Acumatica. So it's all within Acumatica. But my philosophy and let's say our company's, not just my philosophy, our company philosophy was, as much as possible, enhance the product, not change functionality. So use Acumatica's functionality and enhance on it, write more on it. So if Acumatica is using sales order, keep using sales order, enhance the sales order if need be, or create other forms which, let's say, which do the bulk things, like what Acumatica does with the bulk processing. Okay, for example, one of the areas that we enhanced quite a lot for this line of business was the payment reconciliation. Because imagine a driver coming in with the areas that we enhanced quite a lot for this line of business was the payment reconciliation. Because imagine a driver coming in with 30, 40, 50 invoices. He's collecting money, because in the local market we are still collecting cash and checks. So imagine having this, and the clerk trying to consolidate all that cash and all those invoices. In Acumatica, it would be a bit cumbersome, especially if there are returns, if you need to do a lot of credit memos, allocate payments to the invoices. And what we did, we built a screen to do all that on one screen, and then through customizations, we automated all these processes. So, what we did with such customizations, it's not reinvent the wheel, but just enhancing on the functionality, which in my opinion, the standard functionality of Acumatica is already great. So what we required to do was enhance such functionality to make it easier for the user, for the end user, to do all these bulk processes, what I call the bulk processes.
What did you call that product?
Orbis DSD, it is called. Yeah, it is distributed because Orbis is our, let's say, is our branding, local branding, and DSD because it is the distribution arm of this. So I think that was quite successful as well, because we engaged with three. First of all, without such, let's say, enhancements, we couldn't compete because there was a local product which was already quite famous, but it's a bit oldish product. It doesn't run on cloud-based, entered it into quite big companies when it comes to these, let's say, free distribution companies locally. And right now, as we speak, we're implementing it in another company, and we have another contract as well with another company. So that was, I think, an area which was also, I can say it was successful. Hopefully, we'll implement it in many more distribution centers, many more other customers or prospects. Hopefully they will be customers, but it was another area. So mainly we focused on the professional services and the distribution side of Acumatica. And now we're embarking, what's next? We're embarking with some other, let's say, looking at some other implementations when it comes to other areas. CRM, obviously, we implemented some CRM. Obviously, we implemented some CRM, but we can take this quite a long journey there as well with CRM. And luckily, and this is the final one that I wanted to mention, luckily this year we embarked on a largish project. It's a company, not in Malta, not local company, but it's a company which has offices in many countries within the EU. And we're still in the initial stages. We're still in the analysis and design stage. This is in a company which relates more on the servicing. So this is a repair and warranty group of companies. And we will be, hopefully, if everything goes to plan, we would implement Acumatica not in just one country, but for this company in multiple countries as well. Just one country, but for this company in multiple countries as well. So we're quite let's say, quite excited about this last customer which we engaged with, and hopefully because this is a multi-year project, it's not let's say a quick project, but it's a multi-year project. Hopefully we'll have something to talk about in a few years' time, let's put it that way.
That's great. Sounds like you don't regret your decision to move away from the vision to Acumatica. The team's growing. It sounds like, if I caught it right, COVID has even accelerated things for you. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yes. In fact, with COVID, obviously, like any other country, we had a lot of restrictions. We had a lot of, but you know, what is really good about Acumatica, and also what is really good about companies like ours, is that it's very easy for us to work. Not without challenges, obviously, but it's quite easy to work remotely. You know, so to be honest, COVID, yes, it's true. For some reason or another, COVID accelerated. I think it accelerated our progress. Let's put it that way. It doesn't mean that we don't have challenges. I still prefer, at least when it comes to the analysis and design and to the UAT and implementation, definitely nothing nothing changes face to face. Face to face is always much preferred. Doing workshops with client, knowing the client, and becoming part of the client's team. Nothing will change. That definitely. However, like most of other companies, we found ways and means and implement Acumatica.
I'm glad to hear it's going well for you. It sounds like it's still even a brighter future than you've experienced so far. And you're one of the Acumatica veterans. I remember you from way back. There weren't that many people back when you got involved with it.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on and telling your story today. Before we wrap it up, is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, when you are, in the early years, you nearly knew everybody because it was a very small team. Now it's grew, exponentially, Acumatica. So, but that's it. So you have to. Thankfully now there are a lot of new features and a lot of new functionality. So I embrace, I embrace the product growing and growing further. But that's it. That's it from my side, Tim. I think I took quite a lot of time. Embrace the product growing and growing further. But that's it. That's it from my side, Tim. I think I took quite a lot of time, more than you had planned. So sorry about taking all this time.
This is exactly the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Hey, I think we might have exchanged emails on this, but I can't recall right now. I forget if you're planning to try to go to Summit in July or not.
Some of my other colleagues, because I've been in the past 4 summits, I've been always been joining the summit. But this year, some other colleagues of mine, rather than I, will be joining because
Okay.
So however, I can introduce you to them then later on. No problem.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to make it this year.
Okay.
I'll be traveling back. This will be like the first event since COVID, and you're going to have some attendees from Malta. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. We've been. Yes, we're trying to participate every year. And last year we also had our small booth as well. So with the Sorbus DSD that I mentioned. So yeah, I think we're trying as much as possible to participate in such events. As I told you, we've been doing so for the past 4 years, and even this year, yes, 2 people will be represented by 2 people from our company will be participating there.
That's great. Well, Angelo, thanks again for taking time out of your evening to come on.
Thank you, Tim, for the opportunity and for the good work that you are doing. I honestly appreciate what you are doing to the Acumatica ecosystem.
Awesome. Episode of augforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening.